The Man Next to You. Original stories of ordinary people in extraordinary hours. The ones history forgets to name. Season 3, The Hot Land. Episode 1, The Hot Land. The boat ramp had not yet dropped, and already Sergeant Roy Bellamy could feel the heat coming through the steel like the breath off an open oven. That was the first thing about the island, before the noise, before any of it. The heat. They had been told a great many things in the briefings. The maps, the phase lines, the cheerful number that said 3 days, and not one word about the heat, which met them a half-mile out like a hand laid flat against the face and did not lift for the rest of their lives. They were packed into the AM track, shoulder to shoulder, two squads of men who had stopped sweating, clean sweat, and started sweating something sour. And the tractor wallowed and climbed and slammed down again on the swell. And somewhere up forward, the driver was shouting numbers nobody could hear. And the boys were doing what boys do in the last minute, which is each of them privately, separately, making their peace or refusing to. Listen up. Bellamy didn't shout it. He had learned a long time ago that shouting made them more afraid, and that a low voice made them lean in, and a man leaning in is a man not running. Listen to me. When that ramp goes down, you do not stop on the sand. The sand is the worst place on this whole island. You get off the beach, you move, you keep moving, you get to the high lip of it, and you get down, and you bring your buddy with you. That's the whole plan. Get off the beach and bring your buddy with you. Everything else I'll tell you when we get there. It was the 15th of September, 44, a little after 8 in the morning, and the island ahead of them was on fire and did not care about any of them at all. Bellamy risked a look over the lip of the tractor and got the picture in one hot second and ducked back down with it printed on the inside of his eyes. A long, low island, white where the coral showed through, green where the shattered trees still stood, and over the whole near edge of it, a wall of smoke and dust standing up from the naval guns that had been hammering it for 3 days. The guns that were supposed to have killed everything on it, the guns the briefing had leaned on so hard. And under that wall, the beach. And beyond the beach, rising up pale and broken, a ridge. He did not like the ridge. He had been a Marine long enough to read ground, and the ridge read wrong. It looked down on everything. Every yard of that beach lived under its eye. "Tex," he said. "You with me?" "Where else would I be, Roy?" Corporal Dabney was wedged against him, and he had his dry voice on, the one he used like a man whistling past a graveyard. Except the graveyard was in front of them and they were driving into it. "I got a standing invitation to a card game in San Diego, and somehow I am here instead. You explain that to me sometime." Key. Sergeant. PFC Sammy Key on Bellamy's other side, 17 years old and trying so hard to keep his face still that it shook. A boy who'd lied his way in, with a mother who thought he was older than he was, and a country that hadn't checked. "I'm okay, Sergeant. I'm ready." "You're not okay and you're not ready, and that's fine because nobody is," Bellamy said. "You don't have to be ready. You just have to do the next thing I tell you. Can you do the next thing?" "Yes, Sergeant. That's all I need from you. The whole war, that's all I'll ever need from you. The next thing and the man next to you." Key nodded. Bellamy saw him take the words and hold them, the way a falling man takes a rope. The reef was where it began to go wrong, the way it went wrong for everyone, all down the line that morning. The Amtrak slowed and ground and lurched, and Bellamy felt it through his boots. The tractor's tracks, finding the coral, climbing onto the wide flat shelf of reef that ringed the island, the shelf that the boats with keels couldn't cross, which was the whole reason for the AM tracks in the first place. And the moment they were up on the reef in the open slow, the island stopped pretending to be empty. The first round hit the water off the side and threw a column of it across them, warm as bathwater. The second hit a tractor somewhere off to the left, and Bellamy felt the concussion of it in his chest and did not look. There was artillery registered on that reef. Of course there was. The men in the ridge had had weeks to measure the exact distance to every yard of coral a Marine would have to cross, and they had written it all down. And now they were simply reading their own homework back, mortar and artillery walking across the reef in lines. And the Amtraks crawled through it at the speed of a man jogging. And there was nothing anyone inside them could do but sit and be carried and pray to whatever they prayed to. This is the part I hate, Tex announced, to no one, to everyone. Right here, this exact part, can't shoot back at the ocean. Heads down, Bellamy said. Heads down, we're almost across. Heads down. You are never so safe as when you're moving, an old gunnery sergeant had told Bellamy once, 100 years ago in another world, and never so vulnerable as when you are still. Bellamy had believed it his whole career. He believed it crossing that reef with a different and bitter understanding. Because they were moving as fast as the machine could carry them, and it wasn't fast enough, and there was nowhere to move to but forward into more of Sita. The island took the old wisdom and made a liar of it. Here there was no safe direction. There was only through. A boy across the troop compartment, not one of Bellamy's, a kid from the other squad, made a sound and then didn't make any more sounds, and the men on either side of him held him up because there was no room for him to fall down. Key saw it. Bellamy watched Key see it. He watched the boy's whole understanding of the morning change in his face. Eyes on me, Key, Bellamy said. Not him. Me. The next thing. We're almost to the sand. The ramp went down and the world came in white and roaring. They came out the way they'd been told, low and fast, and the beach hit them all at once. The heat of it doubled off the white coral sand, the noise past anything the ear could organize. The smell of cordite and smoke, and the sea and underneath it already the other smell, the one that would be in everything by nightfall. Bellamy's boots hit the sand, and he was moving before his mind had caught up, bent low, his voice already going, off the beach, move, move, with one hand grabbing web gear and shoving men forward, herding his squad up the slope of the sand toward the low lip at the top of it, where there was the ghost of cover. The fire came down off the ridge exactly the way the ground had promised it would, flat and raking from the high places, machine guns that had ranged this sand the way the artillery had ranged the reef. Men fell. Bellamy did not stop for the ones who fell. That was the cruelest law of the beach, and the one he had hammered into them. You do not stop on the sand. Stopping on the sand kills you and kills the man you stop for and kills the man behind him. And he hated it with his whole heart, and he obeyed it, because obeying it was the only thing that got any of them to the place where stopping was allowed. Key, Tex, on me, on the lip, go, go. He reached the low crest at the top of the beach and threw himself down into the meager fold of it, and rolled and looked back and counted. Already, always counting, the habit that would define the season of his life that was beginning on this beach. And there was Tex sliding in beside him, swearing in a steady stream that meant alive. And there was Key, white-faced, dragging another man by the drag strap, a man with a bad leg, hauling him the last yards into cover the way he'd been told. Bring your buddy with you, and Key got him to the lip and got him down and then knelt over him, shaking, and looked at Bellamy with enormous eyes. I got him, Sergeant. I got him off the sand. Did I do it right? You did it exactly right, Bellamy said. Corpsman! The word torn out of him and passed down the line, the word that would be the sound of the whole island. Corpsman, to Corpsman up. And to Key, lower. You did it right. Now stay down and breathe. We're off the beach. That's the first thing. We're off the beach. By afternoon, the heat had become the thing he thought about more than the enemy, and that frightened him more than the enemy did. They had pushed off the beach and across the open ground beyond it in rushes, squad by squad, and now they lay in the broken coral at the foot of the ridge Bellamy had not liked from the sea, and liked less now that it stood straight up over him, pale and shattered and silent, full of dark mouths where the coral had been blasted open or cut open from inside. The naval guns had scoured it bare and changed nothing. The men in it were under it, deep in the cool dark, waiting, and they had water down there. And the Marines on the hot rock above did not. That was the part the briefing hadn't mentioned. The part that was already, on the first day, becoming the quiet emergency under the loud one. There was no water. The island was a dry coral sponge, and the men had landed with 2 canteens each and a salt tablet ration, and a promise that more would come ashore. And the heat was pulling it out of them faster than they could ration it. Bellamy watched his men's lips go gray. He watched Tex, who had not stopped talking all day, stop talking, and that silence scared him worse than the guns. "Drink," he ordered, down the line. "Small, just wet your mouth, don't kill it all." And he held his own canteen to his lips and did not drink, only pretended to, and passed it instead to the wounded man Key had dragged off the beach, because the wounded man had lost blood and the wounded needed more, and that was a thing you did and didn't talk about. "Sergeant?" Key beside him, staring up at the dark mouths in the ridge. "They're in there, aren't they? The whole time. They're watching us right now from in there." "Yeah. It's so quiet. Why is it so quiet?" "Because they've got all the time in the world," Bellamy said, "and they want us to know it. Don't let it work on you. Quiet's just quiet. You drink your water, and you check your rifle, and you take care of the man next to you, and you let me worry about the ridge." Tex, on his other side, found his voice again, rough and cracked. "3 days, they said." He laughed, and it wasn't really a laugh. "Take the place in 3 days, they said. I'm going to find the fellow who said 3 days, Roy. After, I'm going to find him, and I'm going to pour my canteen out in front of him real slow." "You'll have to stand in line," Bellamy said. Night came down fast, the way it does near the equator. No long dusk, just the heat going from white to red to gone, and the island changed its face again. In the dark, the ridge woke up. Not in a charge. Bellamy kept waiting for the charge, the screaming rush across the open that he'd been trained for and half wanted, because at least you could shoot a charge, and it never came. Instead, the dark filled with smaller things. The crack of a sniper who'd come up out of a hole the naval guns had missed. The clink and slither of men moving in the coral. Infiltrators working down through the broken rock to find the seams between the foxholes. Flares going up and turning the whole shattered ridge into a stage of white light and black shadow, and then dying and leaving the dark worse than before. And under it, all the heat finally, mercifully easing, and the thirst staying, and somewhere down the line, more than once, the cry that he already knew would be the sound he heard in his sleep for the rest of his life. Corman up here, carrying through the dark from hole to hole. He moved among his men through the worst hours, low, crawling the line, putting his hand on each of them, saying the small, ordinary things. To Tex, who didn't need it but took it anyway. To the wounded man, who would go out at first light if they could get a tractor onto the beach. To Key. He found Key in his hole, staring into the dark with his rifle, and his whole body wound tight as wire. "I keep hearing them," Key whispered. "Out there, in the rocks. I can't see anything, but I keep hearing them, and Sergeant, I don't know if I'm hearing them or making it up." "Both," Bellamy said low, settling into the coral beside the boy. "You're hearing some and making up the rest, and that's normal. And the trick is you don't fire at sounds. You fire at things you see, you fire at sounds, you give away your hole, and you maybe hit a Marine crawling back from a listening post, and you do their work for them. So you hold. You hold your fire, and you hold your nerve, and you hold this." He tapped the boy's hand where it gripped the rifle. "And when the light comes up, we'll still be here. That's how you win the night. You just still be here in the morning." "Were you scared, Sergeant? Your first time?" "Like this." Bellamy looked out at the dark ridge, the dark mouths, the place that had been promised in 3 days and was going to take everything. "I'm scared right now," he said. "I'm scared every minute on this rock, and I'd be a fool not to be. And so would you. The scared isn't the problem, son. The scared's just along for the ride. You do the next thing with the scared sitting right there next to you. You drink your water, you watch your sector, you take care of the man next to you." He put his hand on the boy's shoulder. "And you'll get to be an old man. You'll be an old man someday, and you'll close your eyes, and you'll be right back here on this rock in the dark, and you'll remember you held. That's worth something. That's worth more than they'll ever put in a newspaper. Key was quiet a long moment. Out in the coral, something moved and went still. The next thing, he said finally, almost to himself. And the man next to you. You were listening, Bellamy said. I'm listening, Sergeant. Good. Bellamy started to move on down the line, to the next hole, the next man, the next small, ordinary thing. Then we'll be all right, you and me. Hold your sector. I'll be back around before the light. The light came up gray and then red over the water behind them, the way it had gone down, and Bellamy lifted his head and counted his squad in the dawn. Every face, his heart in his throat through every one of them. And they were there, thinned, the wounded man still breathing, waiting for the tractor that he could only pray would brave the reef again. Tex, gray-faced, already reaching for the joke. Key, hollow-eyed, 18 hours older in one night than he'd been in 17 years. Alive. Ahead of them, the ridge stood up in the new light, pale and broken and patient, exactly as bad as it had looked from the sea, its dark mouths giving nothing back. 3 days, they'd said. Bellamy looked at it and did the arithmetic of a man who reads ground, and knew the way you know a true and terrible thing all at once, that it was going to be a great deal longer than 3 days, and that the worst of the hot land was still in front of them, up there in the coral, under it, in the dark. He wet his mouth from a near-empty canteen. He checked his rifle. He looked down the line at the men the morning had given back to him. All right, he said, we're still here. That's the first thing. He got them up, the living, into the red light and the rising heat and the long bad climb to come. Now we go again. Off the beach, up the rock, and you bring your buddy with you. Every yard, all the way to the far shore. And they went up into the hot land, the next thing and the man next to you, which was the whole of it, which was the only plan that ever worked. You've been listening to The Man Next to You. These people are fictional. What they carried was not. If this story stayed with you, leave it where someone else might find it, and come back next week for the next one. Until then, take care of the man next to you.